Meg's day was not done, not by a long shot, not if she couldn't find those Athena statues. She was almost positive she knew who had them, and she was about to do something very risky, especially coming from a mortal. If things went south, she might not be invited back up to Mount Olympus. She sighed and thumbed the pin Hercules had given her. Okay, Wonder Boy, it's time to be bold and take a risk. That's what you tell me to do, Meg thought. She cleared her throat. It was now or never. As the rain started to fall harder, Meg walked out into the open square and stood in front of the fountain with the missing Athena statue. I know you're there, Meg said, raising her voice. You've been watching me all day. The rain fell harder, splashing into the fountain and causing waves. Meg rubbed her shoulders to keep warm. I'm not one to ask for favors, but if it's you, Hera, I could really use your help about now. A glow as bright as the sun appeared in the center of the square, pink and vibrant, and then the god herself appeared with a crown on her head, her long flowing locks billowing out behind her in the wind much like her Grecian gown. Her blue eyes narrowed. Are you accusing a god of spying on you, Megara? Hera asked. Accusing? No, Meg said. Guessing? Yes. It's what I would be doing if I had a son who almost renounced his heritage to date a mortal. I'd want to know if she was worth all the fuss, Meg shrugged. Call it a woman's hunch. The god appeared to relax slightly. Meg might have even detected a small smirk. I'm not helping you with your quest, Megara, Hera said. You must find the statues on your own. And I think I have, Meg said. But to get to the bottom of this, I need your help in summoning another god. Hera raised an eyebrow. Bold move. If you're wrong, Meg cut her off. I know. I'm as good as back in the underworld, Thunder boomed. But I'm sure. All right then, said Hera, clasping her hands together. Once I make this call, you are on your own. Understood? Meg nodded. Who do you want me to summon? Meg took a deep breath. Hermes. She saw Hera almost smile, but she yelled for the god. Hermes! Poof! The tiny god appeared at once, not making eye contact. You called, my lady? Hera stepped aside, motioning to Meg. This mortal has something to ask you. But the god didn't leave. It looked like they would have an audience. Hermes looked from Hera to Meg.
More coming on, Mommy?
Huh?
More coming on?
Yep, more's coming on. Hermes looked from Hera to Meg, and she saw his face flicker. What's up, Buttercup? Meg straightened her shoulders. Might as well go for it. Athena statues are missing all over the city. She leaned forward. And I think you took them. Me? Hermes squeaked, his wings slowing down slightly. What proof do you have? He side-eyed Hera, but the god looked at them neutrally. Meg tried to sound firm. Every person I interviewed said the statues were there one minute and gone the next, as if by magic. In their place were olive pits. To me, this sounds like a practical joke, something I know Zeus is quite fond of, and I know you love an audience with the big guy. Hermes said nothing. I know you'd never deliberately be disrespectful to Athena, but she's furious. Furious? Hermes repeated. Over a statue guarding an olive stand? Oh, yes, Meg said, nodding vigorously and cutting a quick glance at Hera. Really angry. I got the impression if they're not returned, heads will roll. Cities will burn. Wars will start. All that sort of thing. But I'm sure if the statues reappeared, all would be forgotten. She never even has to know it was you. I, for one, wouldn't tell her. Ah, jeez. I didn't think she'd get that mad. Everyone is so touchy these days after the Titans. He sighed. Fine. Hermes snapped his fingers, and a 3-story tall Athena statue appeared behind them in the fountain. They're all back, exactly the way they were. He glared at Meg. You really messed with my joke about statues being the pits. Ah, I wondered about that part, Meg said. Well, thank you. Today has been a real slice. He shook his head and poofed himself gone. The rain suddenly stopped suddenly, and the clouds instantly started to clear. Hera looked up. Athena is pleased, it seems. And I suspect your client will be too, she smiled. See you upstairs for dinner, Megra. Good job today. Meg dropped into a bow. Thank you, Hera. As the god faded away, Meg saw Darius running from the marketplace. You did it, he cried. But when and how? How did you get Athena back in the fountain? Meg stood up straighter and pushed her ponytail off her shoulder. I can't reveal all my secrets, Darius. He dropped a bag of jingling coins in her outstretched hand. I just have one question, she said. Why did you send me to Kostos when you were talking to his son? Darius looked down sheepishly. Otis has been wanting his dad and me to put our differences aside and work together as the two largest agoras in the city. After the statues got stolen, I realized he might have a point. Better for us to be a united front and find ways to encourage shoppers to come to both agoras with our best wares, his olives, my feta, no matter what's happening above. Ah, I see, Meg replied. He smiled at her. Anyway, I should thank you, Megra. I'll be sure to recommend you to my brother Letha, who can't remember where he buried his fortune. He thinks the god Taich might have something to do with it. Meg clutched the coins in her hands and started to sashay away. She could already see Pegasus flying toward her in the distance. You know where to find me. Minutes later, she was climbing atop Pegasus and flying into the heavens, straight for a buoyant cloud where Hercules had amassed a huge feast with trays of every delicacy Meg could imagine. We're celebrating, he said as she dismounted and ran into his arms. He spun her around. Thanks to your coin, I helped a bunch of potential heroes today. And thanks to your advice, I found not just one Athena statue, I found half a dozen of them. Hercules' blue eyes widened. Half a dozen? Who took them? That part's not important, she said. All you need to know is I found the trickster, and I don't think they'll be messing with me or thieves again anytime soon. I can't imagine anyone messing with you, Meg. Hercules caressed her cheek. You're the strongest person I know. I think that's you, Meg murmured, running her fingers through his hair. Literally. Hercules grinned. Tied for first place, then? Meg agreed with a long, lingering kiss. So what's next on your journey? I'd say taking things one step at a time, listening as much as possible. More of this? He hugged her, and Meg smiled. And for you? A lot of the same, I suppose. Also, carving a name for myself as someone who can get to the truth of things, and maybe knowing when to ask for help. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Hera and Zeus sitting at a long table filled with more godly delicacies. Hermes filled Zeus's goblet with a pout on his face. Hey, would you mind if we join your parents for dinner tonight? Hercules lit up. Great idea! They gathered their trays of food to share, then made their way to the large, glistening table. Hello, you two, Zeus boomed. Come find your seat, Hera said. They looked down. There were 2 extra place settings with cards beside them, one that read Hercules and another labeled Megara. Hercules' eyes widened. He turned to Meg. How did you know they'd be expecting us? Hera and Meg shared a smile. Call it a hunch, Meg said. And that is the end of Call It a Hunch. I think that was pretty nifty that they made Megara as a little bit of a detective and Hercules getting the idea of being a god. That was actually pretty cool. And of course, Hermes. Really, Hermes? That doesn't surprise me. I mean, you're the god of tricksters too, so that doesn't surprise me. That's a neat thing that they did, that they included that little detail to Hermes. Well, again, thank you for joining me on this Twisted Tale adventure. See you next time. See you real soon.